Thanks, Brooks. MetLife is excited to be here and to support this wonderful, important event. Earlier this year, we were recognized by Fortune magazine as one of the most admired companies, which is a terrific honor, but it is not by mistake. As our CEO said, this recognition reflects how, by staying true to our purpose, we deliver business outcomes that matter and continue to grow our legacy of building a more confident future. Through partnerships like this one with NC Tech, we are committed to building a strong tech workforce right here in North Carolina and supporting the communities we serve to deliver those outcomes that matter. Today's event is a great example of many of the things that matter to MetLife and why we work to build a workplace culture that allows our team members to bring their authentic selves to work, which ultimately builds better outcomes from a business and employee engagement perspective. And continuing on that theme of building better outcomes, it is my honor to introduce John Samuel, co-founder and CEO of Abler, a full-service disability inclusion organization whose mission is to remove barriers for all people with disabilities. John manages a dedicated team that prioritizes helping organizations enhance inclusivity by ensuring digital content is accessible to individuals of all abilities. His personal experience as a person who is blind, facing numerous barriers in education, career, and everyday life due to accessibility challenges, fuels his passion for this work. He's a native to North Carolina, growing up right here in Cary. It's amazing to hear how he grew up just down the street from MetLife, and I hope you guys enjoy his presentation here. Now let's welcome John to the stage as he shares his journey and insights on overcoming challenges with no fear.
Thank you so much, Sandra. How are you? Thank you.
We're going to go in this center. Oh, you got about 3 feet behind you, 4 feet in front of you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Well, good morning. You know, when Lylan was running late, I was crossing my fingers that she was going to be late. Because Tracy's like, John, you may have to go up. And I was like, oh, yeah, I'm ready. I'm ready. Because 5 years ago, I was invited to give the very first keynote at this event. But unfortunately, we had the pandemic and went virtual. So I didn't get to stand on the main stage. So I'm excited to be here today. When I got the opportunity 5 years ago, I didn't realize what NC Tech was giving me. They were giving me a platform to share my story, and it opened up so many more doors and opportunities than I could ever imagine. But more importantly, what they did was highlight the need for greater disability inclusion and accessibility. And for that, I will always be grateful to NC Tech. So please give it up for them. As we get started, I have a question for y'all, but since I can't see you, I'm going to ask you to clap. Is that okay? Yes. Let's clap. There you go. How many of y'all remember a brand called No Fear? I don't blame you if you don't. You see, No Fear was an extreme sports brand that came to fame in the 90s. And they were selling this No Fear life. And they were doing it by selling t-shirts in the parking lot of motocross events. That's how they got started. And within 3 years, they were generating over $100 million in sales. And they were competing directly with Nike for market share, which is pretty amazing. But just as fast as they rose up, they fell. And that's why many of us don't remember who they are. You know, in the 90s, I couldn't relate to this no-fear lifestyle because that's when I was diagnosed with a degenerating eye condition called retinitis pigmentosa and was told I was going blind. And I was filled with fear. The fear that I would never be able to have a family of my own. The fear that I wouldn't be able to have a career. And the fear that I wouldn't be able to belong. And soon that fear turned to anger. And I kept that anger bottled up inside. And it would occasionally overflow and spill over to the people I love most, my family. But one time it came out of my work. At the time, I was working in Africa, and I was getting ready to leave my role and come back to the US to go to grad school. And as I was transitioning to my colleague and dear friend, my ego got the best of me. And I lashed out against him. And it was disheartening. It wasn't the leader I wanted to be, and it wasn't the leader I wanted to be. You know, this person had been by my side. They had helped me navigate Africa while losing my sight. They had been there when I was all alone. And so I realized at that point I had to do something about it. And that's when I needed to work on the underlying issues that were causing that anger. And I was introduced to meditation, and I started practicing it. And it really made a huge impact on me. And I was able now to kind of control that. But before leaving Africa, I had another goal. I had a goal of climbing Mount Kilimanjaro, the highest peak in Africa, and also known as the roof of Africa. And so I was ready to go on this 7-day hike, and one of my high school buddies, Stephen Jeffers, was like, yeah, I'll come with you. And so it was great. We found a guide named Brighton who said he'll take us up. And so when we met Brighton before the 7-day trek, Brighton said, hey man, I got a visual impairment. We're gonna be okay? And he looked at me and he goes, oh, you don't look blind, you're fine. So I told Stephen, I said, I don't look blind, so I think we're okay, bud. And so we went off. And on that first day, I kept on falling. And I fell, and I fell. And what was supposed to be an 8-hour trek took 10 hours. And when we got to the base camp, Brighton looked at me and said, John, you're not going to make it. The next day, I was building up that anger in my tummy. I knew that feeling. But that next day when we went on, I kept on falling. And Brighton said, John, you're not going to make it. Kept falling. John, you're not going to make it. I kept falling. And Brian said, John, I told you, you're not going to make it. And instead, each time my anger was building up, but instead of letting it spill over, I was able to manage it. And I said, Brighton, we are not going to make it if you continue to take me up the way that you take everybody else up. And it was in that moment that we actually started to communicate. We started to understand each other. And first time we actually started to hear each other. And this is where I learned about the idea of proximity builds empathy. Many of you may have heard me talk about this, but that was the first time I really understood what proximity builds empathy. And over the next couple of days, we actually started to have real conversations. He understood not focusing on what I couldn't do, but what I could do. And we started to realize and come up with a strategy. I could see the contrast of his boots against the sand and dirt and the snow. So I focused on his boots. And he and my buddy Stephen would give me verbal cues on what I had to do. And we navigated up the mountain by me following his feet and them giving me verbal communication. But we got to the last day of the ascent. This is a day I had been fearing from the very beginning because you have to leave in the middle of the night. And at this point in my life, my night vision was pretty much gone. And I was scared about this. And right before we were about to head off, my buddy Stephen took the headlamp off my head and he strapped it against Brighton's boot. He said, John, keep following the light, follow Brighton's boot, and I'll be right here behind you. And as we navigated that height, the ascent, that fear turned to confidence and excitement. And 10 hours later, we touched the roof of Africa. And I achieved one of my goals. Thank you. It's these experiences that have helped me to, when I look at my news feed, and I listen to podcasts and I hear the anger of so many people, I can empathize with them. It's because many people are fearful of change. They're fearful of competition, and they're fearful of the unknown. And it's this fear that is leading to that anger. But I can stand here today and tell you that I'm living a no-fear life. And that was tested just this past week. 2 weeks ago, I started seeing fireworks in my eyes. And several years ago, that would have caused a lot of fear in me. And when I went to the eye doctor, and they told me I had a torn retina, that would added more fear to me. And when they told me that I could have had a detached retina and that I would lose whatever usable vision I have left, that would have put it over the top. But today, no. I wasn't fearful. And that's because 7 years ago, we launched an organization that removed the barriers for people with disabilities in all aspects of life. And at Abler, we're doing that by eliminating the digital divide through our digital accessibility services, where we are making sure that all digital content and websites are accessible for people of all abilities. We're changing the mindsets of people and organizations through our disability awareness trainings, where we're making sure that people are getting the accommodations that they need to be successful. And we are creating pathways for employment for people who are blind through our workforce development programs, and helping them earn the skills, the qualifications, and earn employment based on their merit. And, these lines of businesses were actually formed based on the challenges I was facing in my own life and millions of other people in my shoes. It's the fear of being left behind in a digital age. It's that fear of not belonging in the workplace. And it's a lacking of confidence to believe that you can have a meaningful career. But not only are we helping the 61 million people living in the United States who identify with a disability, but we're helping organizations future-proof themselves. We're helping them to future-proof themselves by tapping into a pool of candidates that are innovators, creative problem solvers, and people looking for a chance. They're hungry. And these are the individuals, because companies are made up of people. These are the people who will future-proof these organizations, your organizations, so that you do not become another no-fear brand, but rather a Nike and last the test of time. So as I wrap up, I want to challenge all of you to think what proximity builds empathy means to you and how you can future-proof your own organizations. And I promise you, if you do that, you can live a no-fear life. Thank you so much.